Welcome back to the channel. Today we're ranking all of the United States national parks on the internet's favorite tier list.
Which I've heard about yesterday, because I never knew it existed.
So on this tier list, the ranking goes S, A, B, C, D, E, F.
S is the best.
S is the best and F is the worst. So the best national parks start at the top and the worst national parks are going to be Fs.
I don't understand why it's not A. Why does it start with S?
It's a long story.
Apparently video games are involved.
And for the criteria for this list, we take into consideration accessibility, natural beauty, wildlife. What else do we take into consideration?
You said cell phone service.
Cell service? Oh, that's all part of accessibility.
So combined, we've been to like 55 out of the 63 national parks.
So for those other national parks, we're using our best judgment as well as anecdotes, stories from our friends, their experiences, pictures, and we're going to try to be a little bit more fair with those and not knock them too far down or too far up. So the first national park we're reviewing today is Acadia National Park in Maine. Now, it is a pretty national park.
I thought
for
this
the
was
East
a pretty
Coast.
national park.
I used to think it was pretty as well because people throw the name around like it is. And then I started
Very busy.
I've been there a while ago, and then I started doing some research again when we started thinking about where to rank it. And I realized, no, it's really not that pretty as it turns out. It's kind of just a town that's named a national park.
No, it has a coastline, it has scenic things.
So my argument for it being a D tier is this park is so crowded that they've started to only accept reservations for you to even have a chance to visit.
Only reservations for 2 roads in the park.
Yeah, but the 2 most popular roads. If you can't even visit the national park on a whim, I think that it doesn't even deserve to be A, B, or C tier. So I think D tier is fair.
Fine, D tier. All right, so next up is Arches National Park in Utah. I'd say this is one of the most popular parks in the country.
It's a small park, so it is pretty crowded.
So even if there's not that many people there,
yeah.
it feels busy because there's just, you hike to Delicate Arch and Sunset and it's just mobbed, like hundreds of people.
But it's an absolutely beautiful park. It's very easy to get to, very easy to get around.
And it has arches, which is what you expect.
I mean, it's great to take pictures of. I think this is a solid B tier park.
Yeah. You can't really give it higher because just...
It's a little too small.
So
Arches is a B tier national park. So the next national park is Badlands National Park in South Dakota. Now, I went to this park a long time ago as well, and...
I think it's been about 3 years for me.
Yeah. And I mean, it's very pretty for the state that it's in. I don't think it's got much to offer compared to some of the other parks.
This was one of my first national parks that I saw, so I thought it was
You probably
stunning.
thought it was the most stunning thing in the world.
But
yeah.
the thing that I remember about it is you can just hike anywhere basically. You can overnight backpack. It's free. You can camp. It's
It is
accessible.
a very free park. Yeah.
In one of the regions of the country where there's not much to offer, you do have that. So I think it's unique.
I definitely, it doesn't hold up. It doesn't compare to some of the other parks in the West, but it's kind of more of a Midwestern
But it's
park.
a C tier park.
It's a C tier park. All right, Badlands gets a C tier on our list.
I feel like that's fair.
I think that's fair.
All right, so next up we have Big Bend National Park in Texas.
Now,
Your home state.
I'm from Texas. I think Big Bend it's a pretty underrated park in my opinion, even after having seen most of the national parks. It's quite remote, which means that there's not a lot of people there, but the roads are fantastic. It's
Well,
really
I don't know about
easy to get to. No, but I mean, there's a lot of roads.
There's a lot of dirt roads.
A lot of roads that are open year round, but most of the road network internally is paved.
It's got mountains, canyons, rivers. It has a hot spring if you want to soak. It has some of the best dark night skies for, seeing the Milky Way and everything like that, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's a very diverse national park, and I think it's got a lot to offer for the area it's in. There's not a lot of parks around there.
And also just, I would give it a B just because I feel like it's unique.
And it's a big park.
I don't think the views are enough to warrant an A or an S.
No. I think B tier is fair.
But yeah, it's got a lot to offer. And also, you'll be alone because nobody goes there. It's one of the least visited national parks in the country.
Absolutely. So Big Bend National Park gets a B tier. So the next national park on our list is Biscayne National Park in Florida. Now this park is what they call an oceanic national park, seeing as how basically 99% of this park
Is underwater?
is underwater, exactly. It's coral reefs and protected marine landscapes. Unfortunately, that doesn't offer much to the average visitor. So I think that this park, I mean, even as far as an East Coast park goes,
It's an E.
It's not great.
It's not the worst, but
No, it's pretty bad. I think
do you need to go out of your way to see it? No.
Biscayne National Park gets an E tier,
Yes.
definitely.
All right, so next we have Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park, which is in Colorado. I've been here a couple times, and it is a Black Canyon of the Gunnison.
It's a very small national park, and it really only has that to offer.
I mean, once you've been to like Grand Canyon or different places, it kind of pales in comparison.
I think it's a D tier park.
Oh, it's fine.
Right.
It's in Colorado.
Black Canyon of the Gunnison gets a D tier. All right, next up is Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah. Now,
one of the Mighty Five.
One of the Mighty Five, yes. Utah's got 5 beautiful national parks.
Some more than others.
According to them, at least. Now, it is pretty. It's very easy to get to. It's open year-round, but it's very small, and it is pretty crowded, especially in the summer.
It's a park where you can go there for one day and you've seen
it all, yeah. It's a series of overlooks. It's pretty for pictures.
You can hike, however, even the hikes kind of look the same. Mm-hmm. I would give it a C.
I think it's a solid C tier park.
It's middle of the pack.
Mostly because there's not that much there besides the Bryce Canyon, which I guess is what you're going for.
Well, and there's better parks in Utah, even just in Utah.
Yeah.
And it's insanely busy. At the overlooks, I mean, there'll be 100 people at each overlook.
Yeah, I mean, it's you get what you expect. The only issue is it's small, it doesn't offer that much, and it's very crowded.
But it is accessible.
So is it a C tier?
C tier.
All right. Bryce Canyon gets a C tier.
Next up, Canyonlands National Park.
Another one of Utah's
also
Mighty
in
Five.
Utah.
Yeah.
Which we...
Pretty impartial, I think, about this.
You get solitude there. It's not busy compared to Arches, its neighbor. You're gonna get a lot more alone time, peace, tons of hiking, backpacking, but it's not
awe-inspiring.
No.
It's a hard park to research as well because it doesn't necessarily have one very popular area or a specific road that people drive down. It's more of just a big area of desert.
Mesa Arch.
Mesa Arch is very crowded.
That is the one shot you will always see from Canyonlands, and that is very crowded. But
aside from that, yeah, it's just a lot of desert that's protected by the Park Service.
It's the same level as Bryce Canyon. Yeah. It's bigger, but
it's bigger and there's more solitude, but I think that balances out the scenery, so C tier?
C tier.
All right, Canyonlands National Park, it's a C tier.
You had to do a C tier.
I had to do that. Continuing on Utah's Mighty Five is Capitol Reef National Park.
So personally, I think it's the most underrated park in Utah.
Yes, there's absolutely nobody there. It's by far the least visited of Utah's 5.
One of the few national parks that actually offers free camping in the national park.
Yes, the actual national park campsites are free. And now it is a little bit less accessible as far as what you can and can't see depending on your vehicle. A lot of the roads are dirt roads. There's some river crossings, but it is mostly open year-round. It's got some fantastic views, and I think just the solitude factor alone, there's nobody there.
And I mean, the dirt roads aren't bad roads.
No, they're really not.
Unless you have a 2 front-wheel drive, is
it? Yeah, bring an all-wheel drive, high-clearance car, and this is going to be one of your favorite national parks.
Don't bring a Ford Flex.
But I think for sure this is a B tier park.
This is a B tier park, which I get might surprise people, but if you go, you'll understand.
So Capitol Reef gets a B tier.
So moving on, we have Bed Caverns National Park in New Mexico. I think this is the best cave.
There are a few cave national parks.
Country. This is the most stunning.
I think it's the most stunning. I would agree. I mean, it's very easy to get to. It's very accessible. It's very lit up inside. You can really understand why it's a national park as opposed to some of the other caves, which are just caves. But the only problem there is that that's really all it has.
That's all it has.
It's
and
just
you have
a cave.
To wait in line, take a big elevator down. It's a little crowded. Well, I mean, granted, I went on one of the fee-free days, so might have been why it was so crowded.
Yeah, it's possible.
But I mean, it's not. It's a D.
Yeah, this is a D tier park. Yeah. It's not E because it's the best of the cave parks in our opinion, but I think it's a solid D tier park. Moving on now to Channel Islands National Park in California. Now this is an island park, which means you cannot drive there. Everything that you can see and do requires getting there by ferry.
I'm sorry, California just really wanted to have the most amount of national parks.
It has so many, and they are so not worth it. If you're in Southern California, do not go to Channel Islands National Park, or a few more coming up on the list.
Yeah, there are better things to do in California.
I mean, Channel Islands, without a doubt, is an E tier park. It might have wildlife.
No, it has views when you get there, and it has wildlife, and it has it has some solitude because not many people go, but it's not accessible.
And it's really not that spectacular.
It's an island.
It's an E tier park, is what it is.
It's an E tier. So Channel Islands gets an E. So next we have Congaree National Park in South Carolina, which is a swamp.
It is, I mean, it used to be called Congaree Swamp National Monument.
Yes, it is
before
a
it
swamp.
became a national park. I think it should have stayed that way.
Oh.
I mean, this should not be a national park. Let's just be honest.
So one of my biggest issues with Congaree National Park is it's flooded half the year, and they flooded on purpose from one of the dams nearby to control the water flow, and also to, I guess, to continue having it be a swamp. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's
they purposely flood it, so the boardwalk is just flooded out for like half the year.
If you've ever seen a swamp, you've seen Congaree National Park.
And is it pretty? Yeah,
No, it's not. It's not
trees
pretty.
are cool.
It has some interesting, East Coast, Southeast wildlife with alligators and
like I love a good
things like that.
boardwalk over something. Boardwalks are fun.
Boardwalks are fun.
But it's an E.
It is an E-tier park.
Because it's not the worst.
No.
And it's on the East Coast, which means we gotta bump it up a letter.
Yeah. I mean, compared to the things around it, it's an E-tier park.
All right.
Congaree Swamp gets an E.
No, it's Congaree.
Something like that.
It gets an E.
Next up on the list is Oregon's only national park, Crater
Thankfully.
Lake National Park, up in the Cascades. Now, before I say anything about this park, I want to say that I am impressed that they're able to keep part of this open in the winter. It's one of the snowiest places in the entire country.
Yes.
And many, many, many national parks,
Do not
including
keep this
Yellowstone
open.
just down the street, stay almost entirely closed in the winter. But aside from that, if you look at a picture of Crater Lake National Park, you've seen the entire national park.
It's a lake.
It's a lake.
Now, is it the deepest lake in North America? Is that what it is?
No, it is not, but
it's
it
not
is the deepest lake in the United States.
It's the deepest lake in the United States. It's a lake. It's deep.
That's really all you can say about it. I mean, it's a snowy place. The trails are really only accessible for a few months a year in late summer. And it's Oregon's only national park, so out of pity, we'll give this
a C.
We'll give it a C tier. Crater Lake, fittingly, gets a C.
That's funny. I just got that. All right, moving on. Next, we have Koyahoga Valley National Park
America's best, really. I mean, let's be real.
in Ohio. I went here.
You know what? This is an F tier, okay? I'm just gonna say it. This park sucks.
Have you been here?
I have been to
Valley?
Koyahoga Valley.
Now listen, they have a cool boardwalk that goes to a waterfall. However, I only lasted about 30 minutes in the park because it was really bad.
It is one of America's most boring national parks.
And it's also like right next to a highway. It's like,
I mean, we're talking about a stream with a minor waterfall and a little boardwalk and some
it's an F.
some Midwest
even
forests.
by East Coast standards, it is an F.
It is an F.
So Koyahoga Valley gets an F tier. The first F tier.
Absolutely.
Look at
is.
it winning at something.
All right, the next national park, in stark contrast to Koyahoga Valley, is Death Valley National Park in California. Definitely one of our favorites.
Now, I lived in Death Valley and worked there for 7 months. I love Death Valley. I think it is one of the most unique national parks.
Severely underrated, I would say.
I would say underrated. It has, it's the hottest place in the world. It's the lowest in North America.
And this park is huge. I mean, it is so much bigger than you might think. It's bigger than Yellowstone. I mean, it's a massive national park.
Yes, and it's got sand dunes, it's got salt flats, it's got mountains. You can go from below sea level to like 11,000 feet. It's stunning. And I know a lot of people, maybe if they've just seen pictures or heard someone talk about it, they don't really understand.
It is. I would say it's a hard park to understand if you don't care about the geography and you just drive through, especially in the middle of the day. You might stand somewhere where it's 120 degrees, but all you see is desert. That's because you're missing 90% of the park.
And the thing is, listen, it's hard to love, but man, is it worth it once you do.
It is an absolute gem, and
I want to give it an A tier.
It is an A tier. I think it's California's best national park.
Because listen, it's accessible year round.
Definitely not crowded.
Low crowds because, well, first of all, it's very spread out, so you could be in different parts, and you could be miles away from the other people. Technically, there's no actual entrance station. It's on
a public highway, so it stays open year round.
So you can drive through Death Valley and see it without actually having to pay anything.
It is.
It's unique. It's got things that you can't find anywhere else. So I'm giving it an A.
This is absolutely.
Do I have a little personal bias?
an A
Maybe,
tier.
but I love it.
Death Valley National Park gets an A tier every day of the
I'm
week.
making an A. A.
There you go. A tier. Death Valley.
So next up we have Denali National Park in Alaska. Perhaps the best known park in Alaska.
By far the most known and visited park in the state of Alaska.
And possibly the worst.
Definitely one of the worst. Now here's the thing. This might be polarizing, but Denali National Park absolutely sucks.
It's not accessible.
You have to, if you've never been or you've never looked into this, it is going to cost you over $100 to visit this park. Because,
And that was just to get on the bus to get to mile marker.
Well, yeah, because once you get in the park, you can only drive down, and this is the season that it's open, which is very short.
Yes.
You can only drive to mile 14, where you cannot see the mountain. You can't see any of the pictures you see online. You need to buy and reserve a bus ticket so that you can spend the entire day.
It's
on
like a 5-hour drive.
Narrated bus tour.
And let me tell you, it's a school bus. And
You are
it
not
broke
paying
down.
for luxury. It is unbelievably overpriced.
Our school bus broke down and we had to wait to go on another school bus. The mountain was completely covered up. You couldn't see anything. See, this is the issue with Denali. Is it a stunning mountain? Sure. Is it impressive? Sure. Can you see it the majority of the time? Absolutely not.
And the thing is, it's not like you can go check every day like all the other parks, because you have to get your stupid bus ticket for $40, $80, whatever dollars. I am totally okay with narrated bus tours as long as they're an optional private accessory to your national park vacation, not some mandatory compromise to your visit.
Well, and my thing is, did we see a couple bears and some wildlife? Yes, but could you see more without traveling that far and buying a bus ticket? Are there parks that offer more accessible wildlife? Yes.
We are comparing this a little bit to the other parks in Alaska, which have plenty to offer, stunning views, free access, and not some ridiculous bus ticket. The only thing...
I'm giving this an E.
Yeah, the only thing saving this from being an F, in my opinion, is the fact that it is still...
It's the highest mountain peak.
North America's most beautiful and tallest mountain, if you can see it.
If you can see it.
And it's got some amazing wildlife, but unfortunately,
I'm giving
short
it an
season.
E. It's an E.
And impossible to visit. So this is an E tier park.
Don't believe what you see online.
No.
It's not going to be like that when you go in person. So Denali gets an E.
Gets an E. So the next national park that we are reviewing is Dry Tortugas National Park in the great state of Florida. Now, we have never been to this park, full disclosure here. But
we did
have
watch a
seen this
YouTube
park.
video where the YouTube video said it was the most scenic national park in the country. So we looked up pictures.
There is no way this is the most scenic national park.
It's an old fort.
It's just a fort that's been protected by the Park Service.
It's not accessible. You have to get there either by helicopter or boat. It's like 80 miles offshore.
This is the definition of an F-tier park. No wildlife, no scenery, inaccessible, absolutely no reason to go visit, which is why we will never go visit.
But what you can see the ocean and you can see a fort and that's it. And you could spend like $200 getting there because that's the only way to get there.
Or you can go see absolutely anything else and leave this down
Anything else
F-tier.
in Florida. Go anywhere else in Florida. So it's an F tier.
Yeah, Dry Tortugas F-tier, all day, every day.
Awful park. Next up.
Staying in Florida, yeah.
Everglades National Park. I didn't realize Florida had 3 national parks.
Yeah, it does.
All right, so next up, Everglades National Park in Florida, again. Now, I will say this is the best park in Florida, in my opinion.
And it is...
It has wildlife.
It's wildlife-wise,
Yes.
it's an incredible park.
Very
Lots
diverse.
of diversity. Crocodiles and alligators, as well as tons of other types of
Swamp
reptiles,
creatures.
swamp creatures. The only issue is that's really all you get. I mean, it's an accessible park. There are easy ways to get to it. There are a lot of cool, fun things you can do. Get on different boats and go explore, go fishing, whatever you want. The only problem is you're never going to be blown away.
No, but I mean, I think it's higher than like Biscayne and Dry.
Oh,
I
yeah,
would give it a D.
Well above those.
Because the thing is, like, it's a unique place to go. And I had fun.
If you want to visit all the parks, or at least most of the parks, and you're going to Florida, this really is the only one that's worth seeing.
Yeah.
The other two is just so you can say you've been there. You're not going to get anything out of it. I mean, just compared to the other ones,
I give it a D.
this is a D tier, yeah. All right, Everglades gets a D tier. D tier.
We're really trying with these hand gestures.
Next up is Gates of the Arctic National Park in Alaska. So the only way I got to see this national park was along the western edge of the Dalton Highway, driving up to Prudhoe Bay in Alaska. I hiked in, and I spent a decent amount of time there. The only issue was there were a lot of mosquitoes. It is very hard to get to. I mean, it's one of the classic Alaskan parks that's very difficult to get to, practically inaccessible.
Of course, it's beautiful though, and no one's there.
But yeah, stunningly beautiful, some amazing wildlife. The only U.S. national park that's north of the Arctic Circle, so you can get a proper midnight sun up there. But it just can't go above sea, because you just can't get there.
Yeah.
It's got all the wildlife in the world,
It's got all the views.
It has to be a C tier. The only way to even get a glimpse from your car is to drive up the Dalton Highway and risk your life. So this is a C tier park, most definitely.
So moving on, we have the iconic,
the beautiful, the splendid
Gateway Arch National Park. It is exactly what it says.
It is an arch.
It is a man-made arch.
In the middle of St. Louis.
You can go to the top of the arch.
There are no trails, there are no views, there are no mountains, there are no lakes, there are no waterfalls, there is nothing. There's no wildlife. It is just a city block.
Man-made. It was a national monument, which makes sense. It is a monument.
It must have been an accident. There's no way somebody looked at that and said, that right there, that's going to be one of our national parks. It's a very recent national park. Well, I will say, I mean, this national park is absolutely pathetic. And, I mean, in my opinion, we have an F tier.
Does it go below F?
It does not even deserve to be an F tier. Look at Koyahoga Valley. What do you see? Nature, trails.
You actually see, wildlife, things like that. This you just see
a man-made structure. I mean, it is an awful national park. I say
Can we
put
go
this.
Below F?
This is in the Gateway Arch tier, as low as you can possibly get on the national park spectrum.
If there's any national park never to go to, it's this.
It's Gateway Arch. Next up is Glacier National Park in Montana, along the Canadian border. And I mean, a very beautiful park.
Very famous park, very popular
famous,
park.
One of the top 10 most visited every year.
Going to the Sun Road, you might have heard of it.
Now, there are a few issues with this park. It is beautiful. I mean, we're going to say that for sure. One of the problems is that it is practically entirely shut down in the winter.
It's shut down from like September to June.
Yeah, I mean, well, parts start to reopen in spring, but the most beautiful part, the road.
The Going to the Sun Road is closed from sometime in September to sometime in June. Pretty much every year.
Sometimes even July.
Yes.
And
currently, now they're doing reservation only to go on this road, so you actually have to make a reservation like weeks in advance. They sell out quite quickly just to drive on this road between, 9 a.m. and 6 p.m.
I mean, if you can't visit a park whenever you want, then this park cannot be an S tier. I don't think it can even be an A tier. I mean, Glacier National Park, as beautiful as it is, it's a B tier.
Because it is stunning. However,
stunning.
It's inaccessible. It's insanely crowded. If you don't get to these trailheads by sunrise,
which is like
you're not getting
4 in the morning
spot.
in the summer. Yeah.
Yeah. There's wildlife.
But I think overall, this is going to be a B tier national park. Mostly getting knocked down by the reservation only, the crowded, and the fact that it's not open in the winter.
Yes. So Glacier National Park gets a B tier. So next up we have Glacier Bay National Park. It's another one in Alaska. I have not been here, so it's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a park that is slightly more accessible than some of the ones in Alaska.
But it's not that accessible.
Well, because the two towns down there, Haines and Skagway, that are you can drive there from the Alaska Highway, they predominantly their entire economy is based around tourism to Glacier Bay National Park. So they do offer lots of, if you're going to Alaska, you're already expecting to do some kind of boat tour or flight tour. But they do offer probably the least expensive boat tours of the parks in Alaska. Now, the reason why I want to rank this quite highly is because
you think it's stunning.
Well, to me, the awe factor, the sheer natural beauty, this might be the number one park in the entire country for. I mean, it's one of the few places in the world you can see these massive towering glaciers just dropping icebergs. You see some of the highest mountains in the entire country right up next to the ocean, so they just appear massive. You've got waterfalls, you've got wildlife.
But the issue with this park is, while it's more accessible than others in Alaska, that still means it's less accessible than most parks in the country.
You're definitely either taking a plane or a boat.
It's got to be knocked a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it can't be an S or an A.
If you can only access it from a plane or a boat mostly, then, I mean, B.
This is a B tier park.
B tier. All right, Glacier Bay gets a B. B for Bay.
B for Bay. There you go. Next up is Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona. Now, everybody's heard of this park.
This might be the most famous of
This is, I would say, between Grand Canyon and Yellowstone for the most famous national park in the world. People have heard about this, everywhere. But that also means, like you'd expect,
it's insanely busy.
Unbelievably crowded. It's very easy to get to. It's open year-round.
But could you find a parking spot? I'm not convinced.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely will be blown away by the views of the canyon. I mean, but clearly by far the biggest canyon in the world.
I'll say this for Grand Canyon. The average amount of time a visitor spends in Grand Canyon is about 15 minutes. They park, they go, they look at the vista of the Grand Canyon, they take their pictures, and they leave because that's mostly what people do there. You can hike into it.
I mean, I'm sure, there's a lot
I
of
don't
stuff.
think the view gets better when you're in the canyon.
It's so striking to look at that we're not going to put it low, because it's definitely more striking than many of the other parks in Arizona or Utah. But it is so crowded, so busy, so popular.
And also, like, you've seen it from one view, you've kind of seen it from all the views. It's a big canyon.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, a B?
It is definitely beautiful enough to be a B tier.
It's a B tier.
But not an A or an S, so I think this Grand Canyon gets a B tier on our list.
Which is generous from me. I don't like this part. Next up, you might recognize it, but Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming, where we currently are.
That is the Grand Teton right there.
That might come off as a little
tallest point
biased
in the park.
from what we're going to say next, but that's okay.
Grand Teton National Park,
It's amazing.
in our opinion,
It's stunning.
In everyone's opinion I've ever talked to, is the perfect national park.
Yes.
We're talking about a park that, with effort, because it snows a lot here, it's a very cold winter, stays open completely year-round. Many at least, of the roads are plowed in the winter and accessible.
Wildlife everywhere.
There are bears, there are wolves, there are
Moose,
you got
there
grizzlies, moose,
Elk migrations. I mean, there's everything you want to see.
as well as
There's otters, there's beavers.
I mean, it's really got all the wildlife. It's extremely accessible. The town of Jackson is just down the street. Great cell coverage in the entire park. It's definitely an excellent family park, an excellent photography park.
Yes.
And as far as free camping goes, which we are definitely partial towards, there's free camping everywhere.
Yes. It is getting a little bit more limited.
I mean,
And
this is the middle of summer.
The one thing I will say is this year Grand Teton did decide to go reservation only for all of their campgrounds, which, if that continues, might knock it down a little bit, because that's a little limiting. No one can find. I mean, you go to these free campsites now that no one used to ever be at, and they're now full because nobody can camp anywhere else because all of the paid campgrounds are reservation only. So that is the only gripe I have currently with Grand Teton.
However, the park is not reservation only.
No.
And even during any kind of closure or government shutdown, there's a main highway, Highway 89, that runs through the park with some of the most amazing views, I would say, in the entire country that can't be shut down.
No,
And
this is one of those parks that everyone talks about Yellowstone with wildlife, but you get that here too.
it's open in the winter, and I mean, it is way more scenic than
I've
Yellowstone.
spent a lot of time here. I love this park.
This is, I mean,
This feels
I've
like
never
home.
met somebody that's been here that hasn't turned this into their favorite national park. I mean, it really is.
Does it deserve an S?
This is without a doubt.
This is an
If
S
the
tier.
only, it's an S tier.
This is an S tier.
This
park.
is an S tier park, yeah.
It's just, if you haven't been here, if you're planning a trip, make sure to
And
include Grand
you're gonna
Teton.
keep coming back over and over again. We've been here so many times, and it just feels like home. I mean, it is a perfect national park.
Grand Teton gets an S.
Gets an S tier. So next up is Great Basin National Park in Nevada.
You love this park.
I love this park, but I'm gonna be realistic with it. It's mostly
Sure about that?
it's mostly
You and your
closed.
Sky Islands.
It's mostly closed in the winter. There is not too much to do. I love the type of ecosystem it's in, the Sky Island type ecosystem you find in the Great Basin, but it's really not that amazing. I mean, it has a cool cave at the bottom that's open year round.
Well, and I will say this. I mean, you go in the middle of summer. You're the only car in the park. I mean, nobody goes to this park.
One of the least visited,
It is
definitely.
insane. You have to be planning to go there. You don't end up there. You go off the loneliest highway in America.
Yeah, you
to- what
drive
did you
down.
say?
You drive down the loneliest highway in America to get on the lonelier highway in America to get to Great Basin
finally get to
National
Great
Park.
Basin National Park, in which, I mean, it's free.
Oh, it's free.
It's free. It's solitude. But I just don't think the views are there to really bump it up above a D.
I mean, it's a D tier park. I would
D tier
agree.
park. So Great Basin gets a D.
D.
D tier park. Moving on, we have Great Sand Dunes National Park, again, in Colorado.
This is one of my preferred
Yeah.
national parks in Colorado, mostly because, I mean, here's the thing. Ducks flying by. Here's the thing with Colorado. This is a state that has a reputation for being one of the most scenic, beautiful states in America. It is definitely not.
No.
I mean, it's surrounded by, basically every state out west has more to offer than Colorado in terms
I
of
don't
scenery.
care how many 14ers you have. If they look like that, and if you start hiking at 11,000 and go to 14, you didn't do something impressive. I hate to say
She
it.
really is on
I
this
don't
thing
like
about 14ers.
It's annoying because everyone's like, "Oh, let's summit all the 14ers in Colorado." I'm like, "Oh, you started at 11,000 feet."
I
Let
think
you
we can
go."
all agree that
I don't like Colorado.
Well, that the height of the mountain you climbed has absolutely no significance on the
It's
difficulty
where
of
you
the mountain.
start.
The elevation gain and just the challenge of the
Yes.
mountain. But that has nothing to do with this.
No.
I think this national park is quite beautiful. There's a lot of sand dunes out west. Most states out west have some kind of sand dune.
But these are great sand dunes.
These are quite spectacular relatively. They're very, very tall, by far the tallest on the continent. And I mean, they're impressive, surrounded by some beautiful peaks. It's not easy to get a wonderful picture in Colorado, but I think Great Sand Dunes National Park is definitely a place to start.
Park.
I think this is a C-tier national park.
Yeah, I know you.
There are a lot of recreation opportunities. It's open year-round. It's easy to get to. It's not crowded at all for Colorado.
For me, just because it's the best in Colorado, it's the best Colorado has to offer, I will give it a C
It's a C-tier park.
against my better judgment.
Moving on.
Great Sand Dunes National Park gets a C tier.
Now moving on to the most visited and popular national park in the entire country, Great Smoky Mountains, kind of straddling the border between Tennessee and North Carolina. This is another East Coast park. I mean,
If you haven't noticed, we don't think they're that good.
well, because they aren't. I mean,
They're not.
We're talking about arguably the most crowded park in the entire country, with not much more than just some rolling hills that have a short fall foliage season to offer.
Now, to be fair, some of those visitors come from just driving the main highway because it's the quickest route.
Yeah, but still, I mean, they're talking, this is,
Yeah. They
seeing as how it's a popular
Yeah.
park, popular park in the East, it's gonna have a lot of visitors.
And it's fine. It has
It's
some
fine.
viewpoints.
think it's
If you
fair,
catch
yeah.
it at sunrise with some fog and some rolling hills, mountains, it can be very pretty. But I mean, you can't give it above a
Can't even give it above a C. This is a D tier park.
D tier.
It might have some wildlife, but
And listen, D tier is good for the East Coast. I mean,
it really is.
highlight of the East
I
Coast
mean,
right there.
Great Smoky Mountains National Park is a D tier.
Is a D tier. So moving on, we have Guadalupe Mountains National Park in the
Great state of Texas. Sorry, I had to cut you off there in case you said something wrong.
He really wants you to know he thinks Texas is great. He's a little biased though.
Now, what isn't great is Guadalupe Mountains National Park.
But what would be great is if they combined it with Carlsbad Caverns.
Yes, it is right across the
They basically
New Mexican
touch.
border.
They're connected.
But, I mean, this is a small park with really not that much to offer.
The highest mountain is what, like 9,000?
Not even, very close.
Not
though.
even 9,000?
Which, hey, compared to the East, this is way higher than Klingman's
Well, you
Dome and
do
all
realize
that.
people live in the West that have seen better, right?
Yes, but Texas is kind of in between the two. I mean, this is an E-tier park. It doesn't have much more than a few little hiking trails through the desert. It's nothing like Big Bend National Park, which has way more diversity and wildlife. I mean, it's a small park, hardly deserving of national park status.
So you're giving it what?
I'm giving it an E-tier.
But, hey, combined with Carlsbad Caverns,
It's not going to combine with Carlsbad Caverns.
we can have a chat, because it might move up to a D.
This is an E-tier national park. So moving on now to the national parks in Hawaii, conveniently alphabetical order. The first one is Haleakala National Park.
Now, we should preface this by saying we've not been to either of these parks.
We've never been to Hawaii.
No.
These parks, maybe they'll blow our minds. All we can go off of is the pictures we've seen and the people we've spoken to. And as far as I can tell, the lesser of the two parks in Hawaii is Haleakala, which is kind of post-volcanic. So you've got some kind of like cinder cones and desert-looking regions. Still very scenic, so it's not, it's not an E or an F tier. But it's definitely not the most beautiful place to visit in Hawaii. I think it's got to be a D tier.
Yeah, because I think the other one's better. I would give it, D tier.
D tier park for Haleakala. I'll take the other national park in Hawaii.
So, yes, the next one would be Hawaii Volcanoes National Park in Hawaii, if you didn't get that.
A much more impressive park.
This is supposed to be more, you can actually just see lava bubbling out. This is definitely the more impressive. I mean, you go there for one reason though, and that is to see lava.
But you get to see lava flowing directly
Yes.
out of the mountain into the ocean.
Which is insane.
That's not something you see everywhere. Oh, we
And-
get some shade.
Oh, that's
nice.
And I do want to say, Hawaii, I've seen pictures, I've heard stories. Hawaii is stunning. I know it has insane landscapes. I just don't think the national parks are the best Hawaii has to offer. So while they may have A tier, S tier views, things like that, I think the national parks they don't compete with everything else it has to offer. So I can't give it above a C.
We're talking remoteness as well.
Yeah, you can't
The
get
only way
there.
to Hawaii is to take a plane.
Now you can ship your boat. I mean, you could ship your boat. You could ship your car.
Oh yeah, you could spend tens of thousands of dollars doing
You
that.
could ship your car. It's like $2,000.
Okay. But if you need to get to if you want to get to Hawaii, the only way there is really to take a plane.
And Hawaii
that is inconvenient.
It's one of the most expensive states to visit, I would say.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So I mean, being the better park in Hawaii, I think it's C tier.
C tier. So
Hawaii volcanoes.
gets a C.
It's a C. Next up is the
Iconic.
the mighty Hot Springs National Park. I mean, we're talking about.
Arkansas.
I mean, it's not the best Arkansas has to offer, so that should already tell you
No,
something.
listen, Hot Springs National Park is an absolute trash heap of a park.
This is a resort
And
park.
that's me saying nice.
Developed,
That's nice.
it's a town. I mean, you love Hot Springs.
I have been to so many hot springs out west. I mean, they are everywhere. And I obviously visited Hot Springs National Park once I realized how much I loved hot springs. And you go there, and it's a town.
It almost
with,
made you hate Hot Springs.
This tiny little waterfall that's like warm. And that's it.
And this is developed. I mean, it is a resort. This is not even close to worthy of being a national park.
No.
This is an F tier, all day, every day.
I mean, it's almost Gateway Arch level tier. It's almost that bad. The only thing that saves it is technically it's natural.
And it's got like a tree or something.
It has a tree, it's got some water, but
Do not visit this park. Drive right through and
No.
go out west.
Arkansas, I'm sure, has way better things to offer.
Go to the Ozark National Forest
Yes,
or something.
there you go. All right,
Just
so
don't go to Hot Springs National Joke.
Hot Springs gets an F. So next up, we have another lovely East Coast park, Indiana Dunes National
Lovely
Park.
is a way to put it. Yeah. This is
I don't
the
know if you
second.
can sense the sarcasm.
This is the second newest national park. So this is the 62nd national park in the United States, and it really did not deserve to be a national park.
It was a national preserve.
Lakeshore. It was a
Lakeshore.
It was Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore
Yeah.
until like 2018 or something.
So I've been to this park, and it should not be a national park.
I mean, it shouldn't even be a state park. We're talking about, I mean, some like pathetic little dunes on the shores of Lake Michigan.
Now, I will give the story of it credit for how it became a national park, because I mean, the locals campaigned for years to get this to become a national
But that's
park.
not that
to have
unique.
it be more protection, had to have more protection
Yeah.
because of wildlife or something like that. It's got dunes.
And that's it. I mean,
Now, to be fair, I went on a fun hike there. It was through the forest, and it opens up into a dramatic view of the ocean where I could see Chicago across the way.
I mean, yeah, you're like she said, the best views you can get from this park are looking at the skyline of Chicago across the lake.
It's not like Hot Springs level bad.
But it is a Koyahoga level bad.
It is Koyahoga level bad.
I mean, that's an F tier park. It is not worth visiting.
Which is why Hot Springs I want it to be lower, but that's fine.
You're already on I-90. You might as well just go out west.
Our Indiana Dunes can get an F
It's an F tier park.
because it does suck.
Oh, the shade is nice. Next up is Iloriel National Park, which is an island in the middle of Lake Superior, if that gives you any indication of how difficult it is to get there.
And we have not been there.
We've never been.
No. Seen pictures.
Been to Lake Superior, but not Iloriel. I assume it's similar. I mean, there is wildlife. It appears to be quite serene and beautiful.
It's not very visited.
But I mean...
It's an island.
Yeah, no way you can get there in winter, and there's a lot of bugs. There's not that much to see and do. I mean, it's an E tier park. Even though
It's an E? Are you sure?
Oh yeah, that's an E tier park.
You don't think it's Koyahoga given an E?
I give it an E because it still has moose and wolves, arguably.
Fine, it can be
Oh
an
no,
E.
this is. I mean, it's far better than a Koyahoga Valley.
All right.
That's an E tier park, regardless of the inaccessibility. So Iloriel gets
E tier.
E.
Next up, we have Joshua Tree National Park in California.
Of course, where most of the national parks are these days.
This park should not be a park.
I mean, what can we say about Joshua Tree?
There's
Nothing.
Joshua trees,
Yeah.
and people like to go climbing there.
People really have a fascination with this park for some reason. They
don't
think
know
it's
why.
a cool aesthetic. The entire Mojave Desert looks the same as Joshua Tree
So
National
fun
Park.
fact, the largest Joshua Tree forest in the entire world is located in the Mojave National Preserve. So Joshua
the
Tree
street, yeah.
National Park doesn't even have the largest forest. Mojave National Preserve does.
It's just not worth visiting.
And also,
I mean,
you'll see Joshua trees in Death Valley. You'll see Joshua trees all over the place. It's not special.
is this park accessible? Yes.
It's insanely busy also because it's located near major cities.
I mean, this is not a park that's worth visiting in
No.
our opinion. I mean, this is It's able to not be an F tier because at least it's got some scenery, but it's an E tier.
It's an E tier. I mean, California do better.
Thank you so much for watching part 1 of our national park tier list. If you want to watch us rank the rest of the 63 U.S. national parks, then please click on part 2 up at the top and in the description as well, where we'll cover the rest of the national parks.
This video got a little long, so there has to be 2 parts.
I mean, there's 63 parks. We're trying our best here.
Yeah. And we have a lot of opinions, so...